welcome into another Johnny Torch Live broadcast number 233 today, and our big 275th Torch News Roundup. And I can't think of a more fitting discussion on this momentous occasion, as we are 2 3/4 to the way of 300 big live Torch News Roundups. Well, I'd like to say the first 50 were probably not live, but it's become a staple of the channel, and we're going to talk today about the brand new DCU slate announced by one James Gunn. Now, I kind of put I try not to be too clickbaity. You can't respect a guy that's just like trying to go for the controversy, but I did kind of feel like fanning the flames of what could be some controversial moves here by James Gunn by saying, do you trust James Gunn when he says, look at me, we've got this. Now, we're going to do this with minimal slides, but I'm trying to more and more do these live broadcasts podcast style, where I don't have a lot of images and so on and so forth. I hope that doesn't particularly hurt my engagement, which quite honestly has never been that great in the first place. So if you are watching on the rebroadcast, especially, make sure you leave a comment down below. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. And of course, you check the link in the description below for our Twitter page, where we have a poll right now. It's going to be on all week. So if you're watching this within a few days of its broadcast, you can still take part in it. And the poll of the week is, who do you think is going to, I don't have the poll in front of me verbatim, but basically, who do you think is going to win the battle of comic book studios within the next 10 years? Will it be the newly christened DCU or the MCU? Now, the MCU seems to be on the wane. All their heavy hitters are pretty much out. We have a couple, we've got a couple of big movies still up with Ant-Man 3 coming out. Doctor Strange, of course, probably going to get a third film. We got some heavy hitters still in there, but basically, MCU is kind of on the wane. Do you think they can handle this now that they are going to be rechristening a new day for the DCU? Or will the DCU just completely trounce the MCU at this point? Seeing as how, they're bringing out the heavy hitters. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about Superman, Batman being reintroduced into the DCU. Lots of interesting other projects to talk about. But also, before we get deep into that, I also want to admonish you, so to speak, to check out the link in the description for our comic series, The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye. It's the action-adventure extravaganza of a lifetime. We're going to be doing some more videos about that pretty soon. A couple of new images I've released from the book. But we're going to try to keep this one relatively short today. We're going to go for like maybe a half hour talking about what's going on here in the DCU. So let me pull up the copy here and let's see. Now, James Gunn took to, I seen it on Twitter. I don't know if it originated on Twitter or on YouTube. Somewhere he originated this. It is a 5 or 6 minute video where he outlines his plans for the coming, he said 8 to 10 years, where they've got a first phase, so to speak, which I don't know if he used that phraseology. That's something that Kevin Feige was known for. But it's going to be interesting to see how similar and different these approaches are going to be between, Feige's and Gunn's universes. I think this is a good thing. We'll start off with me just saying this. I think it's a good thing that you have one guiding voice. That's what helped the MCU with Feige being the creative brain trust there. Now, I know Peter Safran, I believe is his name, is also on board here as sort of the showrunner, so to speak. So this is not entirely just up to Gunn, but Gunn is going to be more the creative influence. So a lot of decisions are going to be made creatively by him. All right, this first phase, so to speak, according to Gunn, is going to be called Gods and Monsters, where they're going to reintroduce sort of the gods, so to speak, of the DCU, which is, of course, Superman, which is, of course, Batman, Monsters comes into play a little more with Swamp Thing being announced as having another film. The for lack of a better term, Snyderverse leftovers, he kind of dealt with them in a sort of, I don't know if you want to say dismissive way, but essentially he's saying the Flash, which of course Ezra Miller's Flash, which is still coming out to the consternation of some, it is not being swept under the rug, but at least according to Gunn, it's going to be the sort of rebooting of the franchise. I guess they're using that as their excuse to say, well, the universe is starting over now, and we've got basically Ezra's Flash movie to thank for that. As far as I know, still, Michael Keaton's Batman's going to be in it. It's going to touch on a lot of the multiverse aspects of the DCU. Now, we also have Aquaman 2 coming up. It doesn't sound like they are scrapping the Aquaman franchise with Jason Momoa as of yet. It seems to be, at least according to Gunn, they're leading into Aquaman 2 as if it is still a thing. Now, that may or may not continue on as a franchise. I personally think it won't. I think what you got is a very difficult situation for Gunn, where he's talking about the Flash and he's saying, well, we're committed to the Flash, in other words, but we all know that Ezra Miller is probably out after that film. As far as Aquaman's concerned, I think they kind of like Jason Momoa, but I think they would rather have him on as another character, preferably Lobo. For Shazam, of course, Shazam 2 coming out, which we didn't talk about that new trailer, but I think next week is going to be The Flash is going to have another trailer, so we'll probably do both of those at the same time. But Shazam, they're kind of saying in the video, Gunn is kind of saying that's part of its own corner of the universe. In other words, I don't think they intend to reboot that because there really isn't any need to. They had the Headless Superman cameo. I suppose, you could say that was the Cavill Superman because it was the same costume, but you could pretty much just kind of fudge that and get it in to the new DCU. Now, we also have the last remnants of the Arrowverse that we've not in the video has been dealt with, but I want to talk about this briefly as well, because a lot of people have been saying, well, where does this leave Superman and Lois? And apparently the quote that I've read several times is that, according to Gunn anyway, Superman and Lois is safe for another season or two, quote unquote. That it's reasonably popular, and a new Superman film isn't going to be out for at least another 2 years. We've got a release date of July 11th, 2025, so you probably could fit in about 2 more seasons, which for the Arrowverse, which now is on its last legs with Flash being ended this season, it's on its last legs, and there really isn't anything left. Supergirl's already been canceled. Last year was Stargirl this year was canceled. Supergirl last year. So again, it's pretty much on its last legs. But Superman and Lois probably not going anywhere for at least another season after this third. I imagine that means presumably there'll be a fourth and possibly even a fifth. So that's been confirmed as well. Blue Beetle is another film that is already in the process of being made, which again wasn't, completely touched upon, but he did mention that it is part of the new DCU going forward. Obviously, it's completely separated from the Snyderverse, and that is, completely over with now. So to me, again, I think this is a good thing. I think we go moving forward with a whole new set. I mean, I liked Henry Cavill. I've said it many times before. I liked Henry Cavill. I liked Amy Adams. I thought they could have made a good Superman and Lois team had they continued on. And with the looks of Black Adam trying to reestablish that, I would have gone for it. But again, the rest of the Snyderverse, it was already tainted quite a bit just by virtue of that being in the history, having Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, there really wasn't anything to build off of. They just continued, as the old saying goes, throwing good money after bad. And, the well was basically poisoned. So to start over fresh, I don't really have a problem with that. I think this is the way to go going forward. Now, will James Gunn deliver the goods? That's another question. All right, so let's look at some of the properties that he has announced. They said they were going to announce 7 or 8 properties or something for the upcoming 8 or 10 years. And this is what they revealed. First up, Waller. This is going to be a TV series. Gunn is working on the Superman Legacy film now, so Peacemaker's second season has been delayed, but he will work on this in between Peacemaker's season 1 and 2. So I guess this takes place in between season 1 and 2. This, of course, is a sequel, so to speak, to the Peacemaker series, which is a sequel, so to speak, to the Suicide Squad, which was Gunn's entry into the universe. Now, again, we didn't talk about Suicide Squad. Apparently, that universe is still functioning. I mean, we're still going to have Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, because she, of course, was introduced in his Suicide Squad film. So, again, it's touch and go over what is being kept and what is ultimately out. We haven't really heard anything solid about that. Again, we'll also speak to Gal Gadot's contributions. It's been rumored that she is still up for playing Wonder Woman, I suppose, but nothing has been announced that she's going to be in as Wonder Woman. There's no release date for Waller, the TV series. Creature Commandos was something that Gunn seemed very enthusiastic about. It is described as an animated series that will connect with the live action projects. Now, this is something that the MCU have not been particularly successful with. They do not have a animated universe. They don't have an interconnecting animated universe either. So this will be an interesting way of trying to, I suppose, because from what he said, they are going to probably try to spin this off into live action, whether it be a live action series or whether it's going to be a character from this animated series joining a live action series or movie. We've yet to discover, but apparently that's what they're trying to do with this, because he said they're going to have the same actors play the voices as playing the character in a film or movie or series. So apparently they're casting people with the intention. Now, this is usually the opposite. Usually what happens is you get the actor in the movie, like or series, like say Matt Ryan, and then when he's exhausted doing the TV series appearances, he goes and does the voice in an animated movie or two. This is going to be the opposite, where they actually have him or a character, playing the animated voice, and then they're going to naturally spin off as the live action character eventually. This will be written by Gunn, and he has completed it already. Weasel from Suicide Squad will feature in the show alongside a human leader, a werewolf, a vampire, Frankenstein's monster, and a Gorgon. Interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like, on my interest scale, is this up there high? Probably not. But I get the feeling this is something like, it's going to be sort of his DC-ized version of Guardians of the Galaxy. It sounds like it's very motley crew of, the gang that can't shoot straight, and they somehow come out on top. That sounds interesting. So it might be worth it. All right, the big one. This is the one that officially kicks off the DCU. Superman Legacy. That's the name of the new film. It will be written by Gunn and scheduled for release on July 11th, 2025. It features a new Superman. It's going to be a new Superman actor, but is not an origin story. The film kicks off Gunn and Safran's universe. Per Safran, he describes it as, it focuses on Superman's balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He's the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. his kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. Now, this sounds very good to me. Now, let's break it down for a second here. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. Now, again, that's kind of set off some red flags for people. They're saying, well, didn't we already have that with Man of Steel? I personally don't like the emphasis on Superman being an alien. That's something they've done more so in recent years. I think it's because of the John Byrne storyline. They always go back to that where it's kind of like, well, he's an alien, he's an alien, he's an alien. That's not really something that was focused on too much, I think, in the classic incarnation of Superman. Because Superman basically is a Midwestern kid, and what he gets from his Kryptonian heritage is, it's the classic immigrant story. It's like he's the second generation, and he was born here and he was raised here, but he still has the old country there to give him his perspective on things, where he came from. So I don't think this is really a problem. Obviously, again, saying I don't like the version where he's born here on the Earth, but just saying that he is sort of second generation. He doesn't have memories of Krypton, and that has to be told to him. And that's kind of, I think that's the right way to go when you have that storyline where he's learning about himself as his heritage from Krypton, as the last son of Krypton, which of course he's not really, but that's kind of what they call him. And of course, they're not shying away. Saffron is saying he is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. Now, this sounds very anti-PC the way they're describing this. This sounds like this is going to be old-fashioned Superman. I mean, we do have a version of that with Superman and Lois. I mean, that's basically the same Superman we have with Tyler Hoechlin. He was brought up in Smallville. He has those values instilled in him with Ma and Pa Kent. Ma Kent, of course, gives him the costume, which is a very Silver Age, at least, version of the story. And he's kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. Again, this is the Superman we want. You know what I mean? This is kind of where he's supposed to be. He is supposed to be, quote unquote, old-fashioned. He's supposed to be believing in these ideals. He believes in truth, justice, and the American way. He believes that America is a great place and that he wants to display the virtues of America. And of course, he's helping everywhere he's needed. But then again, that's an American value as well, is to help your neighbor and so on and so forth. I feel like this is the right track. Now, again, depending on how people feel about this, I don't know if this is like this is a young Superman story. This is not going to be him established. And I suppose we're probably going to get some introductions. I think from what I remember hearing, they're not going to be introducing him to Lois, introducing him to Jimmy and Perry White and all that stuff. It's quite possible that he'll have been working as Clark Kent, possibly as Superman, for a couple of years, which again, this is probably the right course to take. All right. Next up, we have Lanterns, a Green Lantern series. Now, there was a Green Lantern series that was going to take place on HBO Max. I think that has been scrapped, and this is the reworking of that. Now, I've been waiting for a Green Lantern project for a long time. Now, we've gotten The Flash on television, and he's been in the movies, and we're getting the movie coming up this year, and we got Aquaman, we've got Supergirl, we've got this Arrow. There's been all kinds of incarnations, but Green Lantern has been the toughest one for them to crack for some reason. I don't understand why it should be so difficult. They did the Ryan Reynolds movie, and then when that didn't perform to their expectations, they were scared. They were mortified on how to approach the character. I don't know why. Because you have a very rich storyline there. You have a, sort of a Knights of the Round Table. There's sort of a space cop. I mean, you can interpret this into a lot of different ways. A space fantasy, epic saga. but they seem to not want to really be able to do anything with this. Now, from the description of it here, again, it's got its pluses and its minuses. Let's get into it right now. The Green Lantern series will get the property on track. It is a key part of the upcoming chapter and will focus on Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Safran related it to True Detective in style. Now, this is good because I think you always start with Hal Jordan. You need to have Hal Jordan in it. Now, I know a lot of people wanted it's got to be John Stewart because they grew up with John Stewart and, he kind of eclipsed Hal Jordan for a while. Hal Jordan is the touchstone Green Lantern. You start with him. Now you can do the prequel when you go back and you talk about, the first Green Lantern. I'm forgetting his name right now. And then you do the other lanterns, which of course are always fun. Guy Gardner and Kyle, and you can get really dense into the continuity, but you got to start with Hal Jordan, and I think they were wise to do that. Now you can also bring John Stewart in very easily. It's not a difficult thing to pair them up together as sort of the buddy cop thing, which is kind of what everybody expected them to do with Green Lantern. They related to True Detective in style. I don't really know. I don't remember True Detective. I never watched it, so I don't really know what that means. But according to Gunn, it's going to be a terrestrial show. So again, this is the thing that gives me pause. Now, it's great that they have Hal Jordan. It's great that they have a series that's going to tie into the greater picture of the DCU. It's great that John Stewart can be a part of it. But when you say terrestrial, to me, I think that means they are not going to go beyond planet Earth. They are not going to go into space. They are going to try to keep the budget low. They're probably not going to use the rings that much. They are definitely not going to bring in the aliens. I think that's a mistake. I think you go big with Green Lantern or you don't go at all. Now, again, you want to start slow and build up. You can do that. I mean, Arrow was an example of how they dragged their feet kicking and screaming into a superhero universe. First, it was, well, he can't wear a mask. We put some grease paint on his face and maybe people won't recognize him. Well, he kills people, what are you going to do? And, we got the villains not really looking like villains. It's more of a suspense thriller with the flashbacks. And then they finally sort of broke that mold at the end of the first season and in a big way in the second season when they came out with Slate, and they just got more densely into the universe, and it turned into like a big I spiraled out into a big epic universe there, the Arrowverse. Now, is that what they're intending to do here, or are they trying to keep it low key? Are they trying to keep it small? They're trying to keep the stakes small. Again, we're going to have to see how that works. So this could be a good thing, but I just would rather have them get out there and do it as a big space fantasy, as a big space opera. Like I said, I didn't have a problem with Ryan Reynolds, Green Lantern. I thought Ryan Reynolds was, was good. It had its weaknesses that they could have fixed had they done a second film. They could have built on the foundation and, again, sort of like what I'm saying here. If you don't start out that great, you can still build on it as it goes on. But they kind of were terrified by the way it was approached, and they scrapped it entirely, which led to Green Lantern being sort of the pariah that he is now in the DCU. Hopefully this will change that. Next up, The Authority. The film will include the engineer, Jorian Thorndike, Apollo, and Midnighter, and tells the tale of a group of anti-heroes who take matters into their own hands. A story is being created, but no one is attached at the time to write. All right, so this is another one of those deep dives that James Gunn has done. And again, I've never heard of this. I suppose people more into the inside baseball of comics have heard of this. But again, this is another Guardians of the Galaxy type thing where I might have heard of one of these characters. I don't know. Is Midnighter the same as Dr. Midnighter? I don't know. But there is, a lot of room to work with, a lot of places they could play. And who knows, that this might be a breakout hit, or it could be just a film that, again, they are trying to tie these into the bigger franchises at large. I don't know exactly how in this case, but uh, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. Next up, Paradise Lost. Taking place before the birth of Wonder Woman, this will be a Game of Thrones style show that looks into her homeland of Themyscira. Now, this is probably the least on my list of interest for the slate. I don't see the purpose of this at all. We want to see a Wonder Woman show without Wonder Woman, basically. This is what it's like to live on Paradise Island, but without Wonder Woman. You could call it anything else. You could call it the Amazons. You could call it the Mascara. And it wouldn't even necessarily need to be tied into, the Wonder Woman character. I don't really see where this helps anything, unless, of course, people that that are really inside baseball that think, well, there's great stories to tell with Ares and Artemis. And maybe there is, but that just doesn't interest me. Give me a Wonder Woman show. You know what I mean? Give me a Wonder Woman movie. I'd have been more excited about that. But of course, they're just rolling out the early takes that they know they're going to get to. This is one of the exciting ones, The Brave and the Bold. Now, when I heard that title, I immediately thought they're going to do a Batman Green Arrow team up, because that's kind of what Brave and the Bold was. It was an anthology type thing where they just had Batman team up with somebody. And in some cases, it was Green Lantern, I think, teamed up at first. But it was a popular thing to do in the 70s, was to have a team-up book with your most popular character. Marvel team-up did that with Spider-Man. It was almost always Spider-Man, and he was always teaming up with some other Marvel hero. Then there was Marvel 2-in-1, which was, again, when the Thing, believe it or not, in this day and age, you wouldn't know that, but when the Thing was actually one of the most popular characters in Marvel, in the late 70s, early 80s, he had his own team-up book where he was teaming up with another Marvel character. DC Comics Presents had Superman team up with another character, another DC character, and it was, again, not densely in continuity, but it was set in that era. You also had, World's Finest, which always teamed up Batman and Superman to have them do an adventure together every month. So Brave and the Bold was Batman's book to do that. And I thought that would have been a fun thing to have Batman always teaming up with someone in a series of movies. It would be a good way of introducing, like I said, the new Green Arrow, the new Black Canary, the new Zatanna. I thought that would be really exciting. But then when I heard what it really was, my interest dropped a little bit. Now, we're going to get another Batman. Now, that to me already is good news. I've got nothing against Robert Pattinson. I haven't seen the film. I don't really know how he acted as Batman, but the movie concept just completely left me cold. I did not want another ultra serious, crime noir version of Batman with no fantastical villains, and they race changed several characters, Jim Gordon, Selena Kyle, no costumes. The Riddler doesn't wear the question mark suit. He's got like a trash bag as his costume. The Joker is apparently a guy with like pustules all over his face. I don't need that. You know what I mean? I want to see the characters as they appeared in the comics, as if they just leapt off the page. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see any more of this real life or slightly hyper realistic stuff. I want to see pure fantasy. I want to see these guys leaping off the page. I want to see the Joker that looks exactly like the Joker on the page. A classic 70s, Neil Adams, Jim Aparo. I want to see that. I want to see that on screen. Now, if this is going to be that, I'll be happy. I'm not sure if that's what it'll be, but Brave and the Bold will be a Batman and Robin story that will feature a different Batman from Reeves' Batman-verse. The story will focus on Batman and his son Damian Wayne, who takes up the mantle of Robin. The film is based on Grant Morrison's run on Batman. Now, this is where I'm really put off a bit by this. Now, I don't like Damian Wayne. I think it was a mistake. I know he has his fans, and I know he has even more detractors. But obviously, you start with Dick Grayson. I don't know why you wouldn't start your new Batman universe with Dick Grayson. Now you obviously have an older Batman again. I don't know how old. They tried to make Ben Affleck look like he was in his 50s. I mean, Affleck was what, in his mid to late 40s. But when you have Damian at that point, Batman has already had like 3 Robins at least. Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and they all pretty much are at the state of moving on. Dick becomes Nightwing. Of course, Jason becomes Red Hood, and Tim becomes Red Robin. So you have a Batman that, unless all those shifts take place within a year of each other, you have a Batman that's already about 45 years old as it is. Now you're starting Superman over again, where he's a young kid. And this is like the early Superman, beginning of his career. And you have a Batman who's already with Damian Wayne. You know what I mean? This does not sound like it matches up. This sounds like we're doing it all over again. We're doing the middle-aged Batman and the, younger Superman. In that case, it seemed like it was even less. I mean, I think what's the age difference? I mean, it's about 10 years, I guess, age difference between Cavill and Affleck. But I always seen them as contemporaries. They're about the same age. So again, I don't understand this. Now, I don't like Damian Wayne. I don't like the character. I don't like what it brings to the Batman universe. It's I don't know how to describe it other than it's like, well, Batman has a juvenile delinquent son that like literally is an assassin, and he has to sort of train him out of his murderous ways. I don't get that. And then of course you have the kind of icky relationship with Talia, who apparently took advantage of Batman at some point, which again is now in the lore, I guess. You got Ra's al Ghul being, again, he's the grandfather of Batman's son. What does this do with the relationship between Catwoman and Batman, who I've always seen as basically being, the real pair? Batman and Catwoman always being the default, love interests. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if this will go wrong, and I'm going to give them every opportunity to do it right, but I am kind of concerned about this as someone who has been dying for a new Batman movie. We haven't gotten a good Batman movie in I don't know how long. I'm really waiting for one. Batman Begins was probably the last real good one. I like The Dark Knight. I would say that was a good one too. The Dark Knight Rises was not really a good movie, but there was good parts about it. So we'll have to wait and see. I guess. I don't know. Booster Gold. It's a Booster Gold TV series. Not many other details. Again, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing in a way. I mean, they already did the Blue Beetle as the second, well, technically third generation Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes. I wanted to really see the Ted Kord Booster Gold team up. I don't know if they're going to do that here. You would think it would be called Blue Beetle Booster Gold if they were, but with the new Blue Beetle, they don't want to go backwards. They're not going to rebrand, two Blue Beetle projects at the same time. That's kind of what they're trying to avoid, I think. This would be good. There's a lot of good actors that could probably do this. I mean, I would suppose Ryan Reynolds would be good, but he's already doing Deadpool, and that's kind of, I don't think they're going to want to cross-pollinate. I think Chris Pratt is a real possibility because he has said he wanted to work with his past, friends in other movies he's done with. So that's a possibility, maybe Jensen Ackles. I don't know, but this is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. This one is a bit different. Again, this is kind of different, a little difficult to get a handle on. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. They are going to do a movie about Supergirl not long after they're doing a movie about Superman. Now, this will be interesting because it's tough for me. I really loved Melissa Benoist's Supergirl. Now, the show itself had its issues. It was not great, but she herself was great in the role. And she brought the classic Supergirl to TV. She was basically what, Superman is. She was basically the equivalent. She's down home on the farm, kind of, family and all that great stuff. But they're basing it on the jaded Supergirl, which is kind of the popular take lately, which is she's sort of ticked off, got a chip on her shoulder, and she's not going to take any guff. It's not a Supergirl to my taste, but again, we'll see how it goes. It says here it's an adaptation of the very recent Tom King comic book run for the character. Again, Tom King doesn't exactly inspire me with a lot of confidence. I mean, a lot of complaints about his Batman run, which I didn't read, but again, people being disappointed there. This Supergirl is much more hardcore, quote unquote hardcore, and not the version we're used to seeing. Again, if they give her a character arc and it's well cast and it's going to be, a blonde, blue-eyed Supergirl the way they did with Melissa Benoist, they might get me interested. Now, if they have a character arc where she's she's a little bit with a chip on her shoulder and so forth at the beginning, but then she softens by the end, and then Superman kind of makes her realize what her place is in the world, something like that, maybe I can get with it. But I don't really know exactly who wants to see, like I've always said, Supergirl is the kid sister of superheroes. Now, Superman is the dad. Wonder Woman's the mom. You know what I mean? A lot of the DC characters have a sort of, there's sort of a branding there that you can't really mess with too much. Batman's sort of like the edgy uncle, you know what I mean? But Superman's the dad, and Supergirl is like the kid sister. I don't really like to see her move beyond that status. And again, that's kind of going to be problematic for me. We'll see how it goes. And finally, Swamp Thing. The movie will be an origin story looking into the dark beginning of the character. Though tonally different from the other films, it will not be separate. All right, so they can use Swamp Thing going forward into the DCU proper. Now, of course, Swamp Thing is no stranger to live action properties. He was in the first movie, I think, was 1982, which is what, like 40 years ago now. Not a bad film, kind of a product of its time. It was one of the early attempts at DC to, again, Swamp Thing got a lot of cred early on because it was seen as being an adult character. It was a serious thing. And I think around the time it was like the late 80s, the early 90s, he became a little bit more of a camp character. They did the return of Swamp Thing. Then they did the television show, which I never watched the television show. I always kind of think I should go back and try to check that out. But again, they did another live action show, which I watched on CW, which was heavily edited, thankfully. But that was okay. I don't know. I mean, the tough thing is they got really weird with the character in the comics because he was sort of outside the DC universe proper. I mean, you could do really strange things with him, and they try to make it that, well, maybe the plant was really Swamp Thing and the actual scientist, Alex, what was his name? He was not. They kind of got into some weird, trippy stuff. So again, I don't really dig Swamp Thing that deeply, but I could see where this could be a fun thing if they do it right and they don't try to make it too weird. At least for my own preference, I would hope that they don't get it too weird. All right, so that is the rundown there of the new DCU slate. Now, is this to your liking? That's what I want to know now. Let me know in the comments below. Again, the top things I'm interested in, let me run over. I think the Superman Legacy film will probably be in good hands. I mean, Gunn, he kind of doesn't strike me as a guy who can write Superman. He's going to have to prove it to me, in other words, but, from what they're describing, it sounds pretty good. The Green Lantern series, of course, that sounds like it could be good. I hope it's not too earthbound. I hope they do have some fantastical elements about it of them actually going to Oa and maybe meeting some other Lanterns. Brave and the Bold, again, a toss-up. I like that we're going to have the Bat family in right away. Apparently, that was the draw with this, was they said, look, we're not going to start over with Batman again from the beginning. We're going to do Batman where he already had all his Robins. We already have Batgirl. We already have, I guess he would have met all his villains, you would imagine, at this point in his career. You know, I'm going to give it every opportunity. And again, I kind of want to give an opportunity to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Again, maybe I should check out that comic. And if it is built around that story, it may or may not cotton to me. I don't know. We'll see. The rest, you know, it's going to depend. Like I said, maybe Booster Gold. I might be interested in that. Because a lot of these things, I probably wouldn't get HBO Max for them. Possibly for Lanterns if it turns out to be that great. I'm talking about the series now, like you know, Waller or Booster Gold. I don't really know that I would subscribe to that just for them, but you know, I don't know. We'll have to see how you know, especially the casting on a lot of these, how they pan out. Are they going to still be woke casting? A lot of people being excited about these things, but you know, if they if they cast, you know, Zendaya as Supergirl, I'm probably going to be out one way or the other. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so let me know what you think in the comments below. What are you looking forward to in the brand new DCU slate announced by James Gunn? Are you looking forward to most of the shows and movies? Are there any that you definitely don't want to see? Are there any that you completely are against, that you don't like the sound of? Let me know in the comments below. All right, so remember to tune in. We will try to do some more live streams. I got to try to get back on the horse here and get more live streams going. Like I said, we had great channel growth last year, and it's really stalled in the last couple of months. So I want to try to bring you guys some more entertainment. Lots of stuff I'd like to cover, but again, I'm going to try to do the more podcast style, so I don't have to really keep, you know, gathering images and going nuts, because that takes away a lot of time from me working on the book, which of course is a clever segue for me to once again pitch The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye. I want to do some more streams about this. I want to be able to show some coloring streams that I'm still coloring. Issue 11, which is tentatively scheduled to be out in May. I'm hoping. We'll see. We're about halfway. Well, a little less than halfway through, because I had some minor delays getting this book off the ground. But again, check out the link in the description below. You can find a lot of info on my website about the series. You can see a free preview page. Say that 3 times fast. Free preview page. But it's very exciting. We're getting halfway through the next story arc with this next issue, A Man of Our Times. Also, I'm going to be watching, now that Wakanda Forever is going to be on Disney Plus. I'm probably going to check that out within the next couple of days. Probably do a video and just give my thoughts about it, because didn't see it in theaters. Wasn't really too hyped for it, but you know, the MCU Phase 4 hasn't been that great. Will this one be any different? I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen Love and Thunder since the theater, and that's been on Disney Plus for quite a while now. I can't seem to bring myself to return to too many of these things. Apart from, you know, I did like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and I think Spider-Man No Way Home was fun. It was more so for being a nostalgia fest, but we'll have to see how they go from here. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Hopefully they get the Fantastic Four right. That's the most important thing. But all right, so we're going to have some more stuff for you eventually, hopefully in the near future. So until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.